Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tvam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitamscha. He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute. Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Brindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye. Vancha kalpatarubhayascha kripa sindhubhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Matsamo nasti papatma naparadhi chakaschana parihare pilajjame kimbruve purushottama. Bhumau skalitapadanam Bhumirevavalambanam Tvai jata paradhanam Tvameva sharanam prabho. Govinda vallabhe radhe Prarthaye tvamaham sada Tvadiyam iti janatu Govindo mam tvaya saha. Radha radhita radhesha Radhika prana vallabha Radha ramana vande tvam Radhika prema nirjita. Hare Krishna. I thank all of you for coming for the Bhakti Sastri class. Forgive me, I'm a few minutes late. There was some traffic hold-up on the El Camino Real Street. So today we'll be reading the 4th chapter. Lauren, nice to see you. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. So we'll be doing the 4th chapter today. At the end of the 3rd chapter, in the 3rd chapter, so shall I give a 5-minute summary from chapter 1? Will it be useful? All right. In the 1st chapter of Bhagavad Gita, the scene is set where Arjuna and Krishna are there on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, and many other soldiers are assembled ready to fight to death. And Arjuna, seeing his own relatives, becomes overwhelmed with compassion and says, I don't want to fight this battlefield. And he gives so many reasons on why he doesn't want to fight that battle. In the second part, Krishna actually he's still being a friend. He said, Oh Arjuna, what happened? Why have these impurities come upon you? They are not befitting a person of your stature. And then in the second part, Arjuna says, I am confused. Shishyasteham shadimam tvam prapannam. I've lost all my composure. My knowledge of Shastras is not helping me. So please, I have become your disciple. Please guide me. And Krishna begins with the knowledge of soul and the body, of how the soul is distinct from the body. We have this identity that I am this body, but that is just a temporary identity. But the soul is everlasting and eternal and is not subject to change. And for almost 30 verses, up till 31st verse, Krishna actually dwells about the nature of soul and how soul is imperishable, immortal, unchangeable, whereas the body is always changing. And in the second part of the second chapter, Krishna talks of Nishkam Karma Yoga, how by performing through Buddhi Yoga or Nishkam Karma Yoga, one achieves the platform of Brahman. Usually people think that's about it. The Bhagavad Gita is done in 2 chapters. Why do you have 16 more chapters? Imagine from the exam perspective, you had just 2 chapters. But nevertheless, we have 16 more chapters. In the 3rd chapter, actually, Arjuna says, good, great. That's what I was telling you. I shouldn't be fighting this, and you are saying the same thing. At many places you said that you should cultivate intelligence and be fixed in your determination and all that stuff. Other places you are saying you should fight, but I think you are saying that I shouldn't fight, right? But Krishna said, no, that's not true. He said that you cannot give up your activities. In fact, if you give up your activities, you can't even maintain your body. And Krishna explains for a human being that how this material creation means that we have utility people in charge of it. There is the heat utility, there is the wind utility, there is the air utility, there is the water utility, there is the rains utility, which means all these demigods, they are the utility companies that they provide us all these, that what we need, and we need to pay our bills to them. And then he talks a little bit about karma, about how every action in this world has an equal and opposite reaction. And towards the end of the 3rd chapter, then Arjuna asks, then you're saying we should do the right activities, but wouldn't it be the case that so many people, they are acting so sinfully, as if somebody is pushing them? In fact, so many people who have killed or who are guilty, they say, I didn't do it. And in fact, people might use some excuses to get out. But Arjuna asks, what is that power that is pushing people to act sinfully, as if it's something beyond their control? And then Krishna answers, Kamayesha Krodayesha Rajodguna Samudbhavam Mahashano Mahapapma Nityam Eniyo Havairinam. He says that it's only that lust which is born of mode of passion that causes people to push. Just think about it. An ordinary government employee or a person who deals with money, they really don't have anything to do with that money. They are accountants, they count the money and they put it in the bank account or give it to the people where it's responsible. But if that person has an excessive attachment to buy, for example, a very luxurious car, and day in, day out, that mind is dwelling upon it, right? So what we are doing is, we are giving an impetus to the mind to acquire that object. Now, in the back, it's going on, how can I get that car? And then daily the attachment grows. I need it, I want it. And then you're counting the money. Then what happens one day? Maybe you can take few of it, put it. You never had, you are a nice person. There's so many documented cases in newspapers where people were ordinary people, but they were caught up in this fancy lifestyle or the illusions and imaginations of a fancy lifestyle, and they really did things that they would normally not do. It's a simple example of how that lust is an eternal enemy of man, because you let your mind dwell on something and then your mind forgot what was ethical, what was unethical, and then you did it. If you are lucky, you get caught. If you are unlucky, then you get the reactions maybe down some other lifetime. Right? So Krishna says, fight against this enemy, lust that is captured, and he gives so many places in the 3rd chapter. Then now we come to the 4th chapter. Because in the 4th chapter, the theme is, what is the title of the 4th chapter? Jnana Yoga, or transcendental knowledge. Knowledge that is transcendental. But just a simple question, haven't we discussed transcendental knowledge? Till now, what were we discussing? The scores of NFL? Or we were discussing transcendental knowledge. So why does Krishna specifically after 3 chapters say this is transcendental knowledge? So there are few reasons for it. We'll dwell into the 4th chapter, and then maybe we'll get some clues. Kindly repeat after me. Sri Bhagavan Uvacha Imam Vivasvate Yogam Proktavanaham Avyayam Vivasvan Manuve Praha Manur Ikshvakave Bravit. Srivas, Mataji, please read the translation. And then we can go from there. Thank you.
Sorry. The personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna said, I instructed this imperishable science of yoga to the sun god, Vivishwan, and Vivishwan instructed it to Manu, the father of mankind, and Manu in turn instructed it to Ikshvaku.
Thank you. So Srila Prabhupada writes in the purport, he does some fundamental mathematical analysis, and he writes that the Bhagavad Gita, which is as we hear today, was spoken some 205 million years ago. So he does the math, he does the calculations, and then he says, this Bhagavad Gita has been existing since time immemorial, but this very verse, since Krishna says, I spoke this knowledge to Vivaswan, sun god, so what is the life of sun god? And he does all that maths, and about 205 million years these words have been existing. Isn't that amazing? That things are not lost with time. Did anybody hear of something called, for those who are in the software, COBOL? What is Fortran? Did anybody hear? Okay. What about BASIC? Does anybody hear now? These languages are dead in 20-30 years. But Krishna's words have been around for 205 million years. And that's not changed though, isn't it? So this is the same words that Krishna says, I spoke the same thing to Vivaswan. People might say it's boring, it's not fashionable. What is something so old and archaic and irrelevant stuff doing in modern age, when modern languages itself are going? Sundarananda Prabhu will say he is now working on Scala, which is an updated version of whatever. So please understand that the soul doesn't change. The soul is unchangeable. And so the knowledge of soul is also unchangeable. If knowledge of soul is changeable, then these words have no meaning. Because it's the same soul that has subsisted since time immemorial. It is the same meaning and message the soul needs, not the material aspects of it. The soul is unchangeable, Krishna is unchangeable, so the knowledge of communicating between Krishna and the soul, is it changeable? No, it is the same knowledge that is applicable across time, place and circumstances. So Krishna says this knowledge is so valuable and it's changeless. You don't have to worry about Bhagavad Gita version 2.0, Bhagavad Gita version 3.0 and 5.0 and 6.0, which is radically changed. Bhagavad Gita 1.0 is deprecated. for those who are in the non-languages, that the older versions of Bhagavad Gita are no longer are useful. That's the same knowledge since time immemorial. And that's the beauty. You get this knowledge, that knowledge itself is satisfying. Text 2. Evam parampara praptam imam rajarshayo viduhu sakalaneha mahata yogo nashta parantapa. Lauren, please.
The supreme science was thus received through the chain of disciplic succession, and the saintly kings understood it in that way. But in the course of time, the succession was broken, and therefore the science as it is appears to be lost.
Here, it's very interesting. Just as Krishna appears and disappears, it seems that Krishna's words, which are non-different from him, appear and disappear. And Srila Prabhupada, actually the knowledge is never lost. Srila Prabhupada uses the term appears to be lost. Right? So, and then Srila Prabhupada goes into purport saying that this knowledge was who the Bhagavad Gita was meant for who? Mainly it looks like it's a high level knowledge and Brahmanas should be the persons getting it, right? But here, Srila Prabhupada says that the saintly kings were the people who needed to know this knowledge also. Because they are supposed to rule the people. And if they cannot understand the words of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, what sort of goal will they lead people towards? In the modern context, politicians have pretty much no goal. All they talk of is maybe economic development, maybe peace, maybe security, maybe social right issues, so on and so forth. But nobody practically talks of why are you here? What is your ultimate goal of life? Wouldn't that be a good topic for the king to engage? But the question comes is why kings? Because kings have that power to rule over people, so they should rule them in the right way. Just like a mother has power over a child, yes or yes, in terms of at least when the child is growing up, which school to go, which classes to be sent, more importantly, which food to be eaten, right? So if the mother is not knowledgeable about what is nutritious versus not, how can she practically help the child in spite of her best intentions? In modern studies will show that this is good, which means mother might use that with a very detrimental effect. Yes or yes? Of course, Krishna's mercy, it's always, he is super soul within, he usually guides the mother to say what's best for the child. But in general, I'm giving that as an example. If the modern kings don't know what is the word of God, how can they actually help the people? So that is the kind of thing that Krishna is talking here. Text 3. Sa evayam maya tedya Sa evayam maya tedya Yoga prokta puratanaha Bhaktosi me sakha cheti Rahasyam hetaduttamam. Prabhu.
That very ancient science of the relationship with the Supreme is today told by me to you because you are my devotee as well as my friend and can therefore understand the transcendental mystery of this science.
So, is there a requirement for understanding the Bhagavad Gita? But here is the thing though, it is what is to be understood. Isn't Bhagavad Gita completely available free. It's not like few verses are there in the free version and then for the premium version you need to pay some money to download all the verses. It's completely there. So why is it Krishna saying that you can understand the mystery? What is the mystery of the science? Why is it mysterious when all the verses are there in front of you? You want to go? Srivas Pandit Prabhu and then Prasanna. Yeah, good. Mike, there's one mic here. Unattended and orphaned.
So Prabhu, even though the verses are before us, they still remain a mystery if one doesn't have the submissive attitude of faith in Krishna. One still has some arrogance about using one's own intelligence.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Prasanna.
Pretty much Prabhu summarized it. If you don't have that faith or don't know how to cultivate that faith, words are words. They don't mean much, right?
Thank you. Others? All right. Srila Prabhupada uses an example in the purport. He says that there are so many commentators who have commented on Bhagavad Gita. In fact, if you see the amount of translations that you have at Amazon, you will be surprised about the number of translations they have. Humongous translations, very, very professionally done, mind you. They word to word, every Sanskrit scholar, forget Sanskrit scholars of India. Even in US, there are so many Sanskrit professors who are, having Caucasian bodies. They are perfect, don't get me wrong. There is one Bhagavad Gita edition by Chris Sargent, and if you see the translation work done, it's impeccable. He not only brings out the verbs, but he also brings out the roots, the context, and the multiple meanings of a particular word. It's fantastic. But is Chris Sargent a devotee? Probably not. Or at least I am unaware of it. So Krishna says that even though you perfectly know the words, unless you have, as Srivas Chandra Prabhu pointed out, some submissive attitude towards Krishna, then you can only know these words in truth. And I don't understand why people have such difficulty. Why, when it comes to religion or spirituality, people say do-it-yourself spirituality is pretty okay. But everything else they need professors. I mean, if you really want to be a PhD student, and then nobody in the world will say, PhD, I was my own PhD advisor. Does anybody say that? And do you accept a person who say, I was my own PhD advisor? I thought of the idea, I guided myself, I wrote it, and I approved it myself. Even though he or she may be extraordinarily genius, but it is still not accepted in academic circles. Yes or yes? So why do we have this do-it-yourself policy with Bhagavad Gita when Krishna clearly says that's not an appropriate way to approach, right? So Arjuna asks this question now. Arjuna Vacha Aparam Bhavato Janma Param Janma Vivasvataha Katam Vijaniyam Pam Adau Proktavaniti.
Arjuna said, the sun god Vivashan is senior by birth to you. How am I to understand that in the beginning you instructed the science to him?
So I have a question. Maybe Arjuna completely lost it when he was wanting to fight the battle. He said no. Maybe he is still not convinced that Krishna is God. That's why he is asking this question, right? He is still doubtful. Because how can you tell to sun god when sun god has been around for many, many millions of years ahead of you? So, Srila Prabhupada writes in the purport that Arjuna asks this question for those who are not completely convinced. He doesn't need conviction himself, because in the 10th chapter he says that you are the Supreme. Parabrahma, Param Dhamma, Paramam Pavitram Paramam Bhavan. But there are always a class of people who doubt Krishna's words, and Arjuna is asking on their behalf. So, and the other point is, Arjuna is a liberated soul. Birth after birth, he is with Krishna. And so, because why do we say this? Because that will come in the purport little later. Many, many beautiful points in the purport, but in paucity of time we shall continue. Text 5. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Bahuni me vyatitani Janmani tava charjuna Tanyaham veda sarvani Natvam veta parantapa. I think, yeah, and then just be ready next. Whoever is the person can have the mic so that we can just go ahead with no confusion.
The personality of Godhead said, Many, many births both you and I have passed. I can remember all of them, but you cannot, O subduer of the enemy.
So, Srila Prabhupada writes in the purport that Krishna, he says that, because he says that both you and me have passed through many, many births. The topic of Krishna's birth comes up from that angle. Arjuna asks the question. It starts out with a disciplic succession, and Krishna says, I instructed this science to sun god. But then Arjuna asks the question that he is much senior to you by birth, how did you? And then Krishna says, many, many births that you and I have passed, but I remember all of them and you cannot. So, one of the Srila Prabhupada's purports, is very extensive. And he talks mainly about how Krishna, though he takes birth in many, many births, he can remember still everything that's happening. Isn't that amazing? That Krishna's memory must be infinite, right? Just our memory is pretty limited, but he's been there since time immemorial. And he has been taking so many incarnations to come. He says, I remember all of them. So, one of the points Srila Prabhupada writes in the purports is that Krishna is independent, which means that he can take birth not just according to certain prescribed timetable, but he can take his birth anytime he wants. So, I have a question, which means that anybody who is claiming to be an incarnation is Krishna himself, because who knows? On one hand, there is some fixed timetable that he comes, on the other hand, he is independent. Just think about that contradiction, and then when we come to that actual purport, we can get the answers. We can see if we can get some answers to that argument. We'll hold to that thought. Text 6. Ajopi san avyayatma Bhutanam Ishwaropi san Prakritim swamadhishtaya Sambhavamyatma mayaya. You have to turn on the mic. The mic is... It's green. Please help him.
Okay. Although I am unborn and my transcendental body never deteriorates, and although I am the Lord of living entities by my internal energy, I still appear in every millennium in my original transcendental form.
Thank you. We will read a little bit of purport. It's a very critical verse because when Krishna appears, how does he appear? Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. The Lord has spoken about the peculiarity of His birth. Although He may appear like an ordinary person, He remembers everything of His many past quote-unquote births. Whereas a common man cannot remember what he has done even few hours before. If someone is asked what he did exactly at the same time one day earlier, it would be very difficult for a common man to answer immediately. He would surely have to dredge his memory to recall what he was doing exactly at the same time one day before. Yet men often dare to claim to be God or Krishna. One should not be misled by such meaningless claims. Then again, the Lord explains that His Prakriti or His form. Prakriti means nature as well as Swarupa or one's own form. The Lord says that He appears in His own body. He does not change His body as the common living entity changes from one body to another. The conditioned soul may have one kind of body in this present birth, but he has a different kind of body in the next birth. In the material world, the living entity has no fixed body but transmigrates from one body to another. The Lord, however, does not do so. Whenever He appears, He does in the same original body by His internal potency. In other words, Krishna appears in this material world in His original eternal form with two hands holding a flute. He appears exactly in His eternal body, uncontaminated by this material world. Although He appears in the same transcendental body and is the Lord of the universe, it still appears that He takes birth like an ordinary living entity, and although His body does not deteriorate like a material body, it still appears that Lord Krishna grows from childhood to boyhood and from boyhood to youth. But astonishingly enough, He never ages beyond youth. At the time of the battle of Kurukshetra, He had many grandchildren at home, or in other words, He had sufficiently aged by material calculations. Still, He looked just like a young man, 20 or 25 years old. We never see a picture of Krishna in old age because He never grows old just like us. Although He is the oldest person in the whole creation, past, present, and future. Any questions so far? Because Krishna's birth and activities are completely different. Krishna's body, the one point though, Srila Prabhupada says that Krishna appears in His original eternal form, but what about His different forms like Narsimha, Rama, and Varaha, Kurma? Isn't He taking on different forms? Thus, by logic, taking on different bodies when He takes His appearance in this material world? Yes, Lauren. Somebody has to give him mic, please.
Is Krishna's original form with two hands playing a flute?
Yes.
That's His original form.
Yeah.
So the other emanations or manifestations, they're not His original form, right?
Yes and no. I'll explain. But anybody else had any points? Sundarananda Prabhu, you had anything to say? It's okay, I didn't mean to put you on the spot. So. But just let me know in case you have. So, all right. Neither His body nor His intelligence ever deteriorates or changes. Therefore, it is clear that in spite of His being in the material world, He is the same unborn, eternal form of bliss and knowledge, changeless in His transcendental body and intelligence. Factually, His appearance and disappearance are like the sun's rising, moving before us and then disappearing from our eyesight. When the sun is out of sight, we think that the sun is set, and when the sun is before our eyes, we think that the sun is on the horizon. Actually, the sun is always fixed in its position, but owing to our defective, insufficient senses, we calculate the appearance and disappearance of the sun in the sky. And because Lord Krishna's appearance and disappearance are completely different from that of an ordinary common living entity, it is evident that his eternal blissful knowledge by his internal potency. It is evident that his eternal blissful knowledge by his internal potency, and he is never contaminated by material nature. The Vedas also confirm that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is unborn, yet still he appears to take his birth in manifestations. The Vedic supplementary literatures also confirm that even though the Lord appears to be taking birth, he is still without change of the body. In the Bhagavatam, he appears before his mother as Narayan with 4 hands and the decorations of 6 kinds of full opulences. His appearance in his original eternal form is the causeless mercy bestowed upon by the living entities, so that they can concentrate on the Supreme Lord as he is, not on the mental concoctions or imaginations, which the impersonalists wrongly think the Lord's form to be. The word Maya or Atma Maya refers to the Lord's causeless mercy according to the Vishwakosha dictionary. The Lord is conscious of all his previous appearances and disappearances, but a common living entity forgets everything about his past body as soon as he gets another body. He is the Lord of all living entities because he performs wonderful superhuman activities while he is on his earth. Therefore, the Lord is the same absolute truth and is without differentiation between his form and self, between his quality and his body. A question may now be raised as to why the Lord appears and disappears in this world, and this explained in the next verse. So, Srila Prabhupada goes into deep lengths to say that Krishna's birth is not the same as our birth. He manifests through his own internal energy, and then he also disappears through his own internal energy. But whereas the living entity has no such choice. Because of the past karma, you are born, you take on this body, and then you give up this body. So it's a very mysterious thing how the Lord appears into this material world. Why he appears, and when he appears, through what agency does he appear? The agency is his own energy or Atma Maya. It's just like one example you can give is, when the king goes into the prison. He goes into the prison out of his own free will. He doesn't have any court or judge saying you have to appear into the prison at this particular point of time. And when he enters into the prison, he doesn't become a prisoner, and he doesn't have to stay in the prison for a stipulated time because of some past activity. He comes, he visits, and he goes of his own violation. Similarly, Krishna, because understand that the prison is also maintained by the king himself, right? The prison house is being funded by the government, and the king is just entering and disappearing of his own prison. But people might think, the prisoners, when they see that the king is come to the prison, hey, look him, he's also a prisoner like you and me. What has the world come to? But so when Krishna was here, not many people could actually understand that he was the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In fact, it is mentioned so many times in Mahabharata. Duryodhana was told, Krishna is the Supreme Lord. So many people told him. Many sages came. His father was always caught in a dilemma. Like he didn't usurp personally the kingdom of the Pandavas, but his son Duryodhana did, and he was a passive witness and sometimes enabler from his own weakness of heart. Because Duryodhana was aggressive and trying to grab the kingdoms of the Pandavas, he would it's not good, my child. Father, I want to do it. Oh, okay, do it. It was that kind of attitude. And he was tormented by guilt. He was tormented by grief. So he would constantly, in fact, it is mentioned in Mahabharata, he spent sleepless nights trying to get over this situation. On one hand, he had the kingdom of Pandavas. He was not able to sleep well at night. He knew that the destruction of the clan was sure to happen because of this war. He feared Krishna, so he constantly would call Vidura. He would constantly call his son, his charioteer Sanjaya, say what should be done. This is the situation. The goal was he didn't want to give the kingdom back. The goal was how to justify whatever illegal activities I have done. Invariably, Vidura and Sanjaya would come and say, "You are wrong. Your son is wrong. Give it back to Pandavas. Otherwise, you'll be destroyed." Time and again, they would say the same thing. Krishna is God. Vyasdev would come and he would say, "Krishna is God. Please don't, fight with him. Follow his instructions." But he was like, Duryodhana was like, "Nope, I'm not going to. Who is this guy, Krishna? I don't care." In fact, as you know the story, when Krishna actually came as a peace messenger, then Duryodhana actually tried to arrest him. And then it is said that during the Mahabharata war, when they started losing, 13th day, 14th day, 15th day, when things were really, really bad for Pandavas, for Kauravas, then Duryodhana, maybe he is God. Maybe all these people who have been telling me, all these sages and rishis who came and told me that Krishna is God, maybe he is God. So the point is that when Krishna appears, it is not many people can even know. Because those who go on book distribution, or even otherwise those who are preaching, they have this, people say, "Show me God." If you think that there is God, show me God. So, but if God is there, can you even identify that he is God? When Krishna comes, he comes in such a way that people can't even identify him, unless he reveals himself. Govind Prabhu had his hand raised, so is there a question or a comment that he had?
Yeah, Prabhu, I was just thinking, what to say of ordinary people? Even Parshuram could not recognize Ram. So, Lord's incarnations do not recognize other incarnations also.
Wonderful, thank you. Thank you. And on that note, when Lord Brahma stole the calves and the cowherd boys and Krishna expanded himself, Balram saw some discrepancies, and later he realized that these calves and cowherd boys were none other than Krishna himself. Because why is these cowherd people, they are loving their children more than Krishna? And then, this is Krishna. Thank you. So it's very mysterious. We pray to Krishna to actually truly reveal himself as he is. Unless he does that, then there is impossible to know Krishna. Right? Yes, Lauren.
In Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan, when he held up Govardhan Hill with his finger, the Vrajavasis, they probably didn't have as much trouble being able to identify him as the Supreme. It seems like in the battlefield of Kurukshetra, he's appearing as like a relative, and as a friend and things like that. So the way he appears in those two situations are not the same, right?
Yeah, in fact, the Vrajavasis were obstinate to not identify him as Supreme. Because they were very obstinate. They really didn't care whether he was Supreme or not. They didn't care if he was Lord Narayan or not. All they knew Krishna as their son, as their lover, as their friend, as their master. That's about it. In fact, it happens that we know the story from Bhagavatam. Once Krishna left Vrindavan, the inhabitants of Vrindavan were plunged in such ocean of intense grief that they barely were able to live. In fact, it is said that Krishna's words that I'll come back soon after my business at Mathura is done was the only hope that sustained their lives. Otherwise, they had no reason to live. They were in such intense agony of separation from Krishna. And please understand that it's not a one-sided thing. Krishna also was in equal agony in Dwarka, remembering the inhabitants of Vrindavan. So he sent Uddhava. Uddhava now was the disciple of Brihaspati. He was having unparalleled intelligence and processing power to analyze situations. In fact, to the point that Krishna would approach Uddhava. Uddhava, this is a crisis. What should we do? Please give me some ideas. Please give me some suggestions. And he would approach Uddhava saying that, this is the thing. You should go as my envoy, and diffuse this crisis that's going on. And so Uddhava relied on Krishna relied on Uddhava. Uddhava was the closest person. In Brihad Bhagavatamrita also it's mentioned that he's so close that he would dine with Krishna, he would be like conversing with Krishna, very confidentially Krishna would talk with him and so on and so forth. And Uddhava was the person deputed by Krishna to go to Vrindavan. Now Uddhava thought, I met kings. I have such intelligence that I can pacify any situation. And Krishna is sending me where? To a simple village. To deal with who? Simple villagers. And I have to pacify on behalf of Krishna. That should not be much difficult. So he left to Vrindavan. And he met Nanda Maharaj. And he said to Nanda Maharaj, why are you crying for Krishna? And when he went, the situation was pathetic. Day and night, they were just torrents of tears were coming down from their eyes in complete bereavement of Krishna. They were just doing their stuff for Krishna. They would make garlands for Krishna. Mother Yashoda would cook for Krishna, hoping he'll come back today. Or they were talking of Krishna. Their whole thing, their whole being was absorbed in Krishna. 100%. And they were crying in agony for Krishna. So Uddhava went. He was first surprised. It's very sentimental people. Why are they doing so much? And then he went to Nanda Maharaj, and Nanda Maharaj saw that Uddhava had come, and he offered him all respect. The cowherd damsels, they thought might be Krishna returned, because Uddhava's complexion and features were pretty much similar to Lord Krishna. And then Uddhava says to Nanda Maharaj, why are you lamenting? Krishna, your son, is Antaryami. He is Bhagavan. He possesses all opulences. He is spread everywhere. So if you think like that, he is still there in Vrindavan. So why do you have to lament? But Nanda Maharaj answered, maybe Krishna is the Lord for you. And we don't care that Krishna is Narayan or he is the Lord. He is my son. And that's all I know of Krishna. So to your point, they were obstinate not to know Krishna. In fact, it is mentioned that Krishna killed demons in such a way that they never disturbed the relationship. When we know the Kartik is coming, we know the story of Yamalajana trees and how they crashed. And they crashed. Who caused them to crash? Krishna caused them to crash. And then when Nanda Maharaj came and saw these two trees smashed, he said, oh, my child is so pious, that's why Narayan protected him. Who is the origin of Narayan? They are thinking like that. So anything happens that is sensational in Vraja, it is either because my child is very pious or Lord Narayan is protecting him. But they never saw that this child is a protector of Narayan. Because their mood was such. And Krishna also preserved that mood. Immediately after the Kaliya chastisement, all the cowherd boys were staying in the forest overnight. And what happened during that time? Forest fire came. And what did Krishna do with the forest fire? He swallowed it. But you know what he did before he swallowed? He makes them sleep, close their eyes. Why? Because he didn't want them to think that he is some, because you remember kids are playing, and all of a sudden that few kids are playing, they're playing, they're having fun, they're punching each other and they're having fun. Suddenly one kid realizes that one amongst the group is the son of the President of the United States. And the people, uncles who are behind that boy is the Secret Service. All of a sudden, what will happen to your mood? Exactly, you will be like, oh, you want to win? Please win. I don't care. I don't want to defeat you. So Krishna also does it in such a way to preserve the mood. He values his rasa with the residents of Vrindavan. Otherwise, normally think about it. Krishna is swallowing, he will say to 10 people, take my photographs and put it on WhatsApp and Twitter, seeing how powerful stuff I am doing. Every world should know. Krishna is opposite. He says, you close your eyes, nobody should see what I am doing. And he swallows up the forest fire. And so that the Gopas, they think, oh, he's my friend, somehow it's got saved. They didn't see what happened. They didn't know how powerful he was. Oh, that's fine. Krishna saved us somehow. He saves us. We don't want to know the details. The nitty-gritty details of how he does what he does, we don't want to know. He saves us. We go to him whenever we have stuff. He saves us. We are good. All fine. That's all we need to know. So that's the mood of Vrindavan. So, thank you. I'm sorry, I digressed. It's Karthik and yeah. We still have a lot of grounds to cover. Text 7. Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata abhyuttanam adharmasya tadatmanam srijamyaham.
Translation: whenever and wherever there is a decline in religious practice or descendant of Bharat and a predominant rise of irreligion, at that time I descend myself.
Thank you. Text 8. Paritranaya sadhunam Paritranaya sadhunam Vinashaya cha dushkritam Dharma samsthapanarthaya Sambhavami yuge yuge.
To deliver the pious and to annihilate the miscreants, as well as to establish the principles of religion, I myself appear millennium after millennium.
So, in the purport, Srila Prabhupada goes at length, who is a sadhu, what are religious principles, and how only Krishna can re-establish the religious principles. Nobody can make up the religious principles on their own. The reason why ISKCON is successful is because there is a very strict adherence to our practices have a philosophical basis which is based in scriptures. It's so because people can come up with so many religious sects, come up with so many of their own imaginative way of achieving some imaginative goal, but because it's based in scriptures, this is I actually congratulate all of you for reading Srila Prabhupada's books, because this is where our true foundation lies in, our true foundation for our practices lies in. Otherwise, it's very easy to get disturbed by various doubts that can come on why we are doing really easy God. I've been worshipping Him for so many years now. Nothing has come out of it. Maybe I need some little recognition. Maybe whatever. So if all these doubts will assail, it's better we read firmly Srila Prabhupada's books, and then our intelligence will be strong to kind of counter the enemies within and without. The enemy within is the biggest enemy, which is our own mind. Without, sometimes we have to. Vijayaram Gopu Prabhu, you had sent me a bunch of questions, so I'm sorry I didn't answer. I'll try to answer it in this class if that's okay. Thank you. All right. Text 9. Janma karma cha me divyam. Sorry, again. Janma karma cha me divyam. Evam yo vetti tattvataha. Tyaktva deham punarjanma. Naiti mameti sorjuna.
One who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, upon leaving the body, take his birth again in this material world, but attains my eternal abode, O Arjuna.
Thank you. So, in the first 3 chapters, Krishna doesn't talk much about himself. He barely talks. He just talks. In the second chapter, he says in the 64th verse, work for me. And even in the third chapter, he indirectly talks about himself as Lord of Yajna. Yajnartha karmanon yatra lokoyam karma bandhana. He says that work performed as duty for Lord Yajna or Vishnu, otherwise work cause. He barely talks about himself. But in the 4th chapter, Krishna slowly pivots us. This 4th chapter is Jnana Yoga, but without knowledge of Krishna, even that Jnana is not complete. And even that knowledge of Krishna in his personal form, because he talks of his Janma. And there is a reason why he talks about his Janma, and then he talks about his karma. Because in the 4th chapter, he says, know my transcendental nature, and if you understand that and work in that context, then you are liberated. Because liberation without Krishna is impossible. Up till now, he never talks of himself, and Krishna says, now there is a connection that's going to happen in the 4th chapter. Albeit it's not complete on the path of bhakti, but nevertheless there is. And as we go into the 4th chapter, we'll discover that connection between Jiva and Krishna. Any questions thus far? Yes, Srivas Pandit Prabhu. Otherwise, this, go ahead.
Hare Krishna. Prabhu, from all these verses, we can feel that how Krishna's appearance for us is so auspicious. Although he is eternal, if he hadn't appeared, we had no way to know him. So how do we express gratitude toward him, and how do we feel that gratitude that we are so fortunate that he appeared 5,000 years ago?
Yeah, very good question. Few of the ways are mentioned in Bhagavad Gita himself. He says that in the 12th chapter, he says, those who are dear to me. So by becoming dear to Krishna, you can actually be reciprocating with why he came. So he gives few aspects in the 12th chapter where he says certain devotees are dear to me, and he gives the qualities, one who thinks of friend and enemy as the same, and so on and so forth. In the 18th chapter he says Sarva Dharman Parityaja, surrender unto me. And then for those who are going on book distribution, he says that there is no person more dear to me than he who gives this knowledge to others. So in ways that he has asked, in ways that he said, we can reciprocate, and thus be really, showing our gratitude to why he came, when he came and gave this knowledge to us. And then the other aspect is we also be grateful to our spiritual master and Srila Prabhupada, who not only gave this knowledge but help us assimilate. In the modern context, if you haven't had these translations and the purports, it would have been very hard to understand. If you just read on your own, it would have been very hard to understand. So we have that gratitude also, that we serve this mission to the best of our ability and, remain faithful. Is that okay? Vijayaram Gopu, and then...
Prabhu, there's so many demons who got liberated by the mercy of the Lord, like Sishupal, Salva, Dantakara. It appears demons are getting more favorable mercy than other devotees who are following strict path of...
Excellent question. Actually, I'll also side with you. In fact, devotees themselves say that demons are better than me. So, Prabhu Vendudari, please pull up 7th canto, 2nd chapter, on another tab, please. Okay, control 7th, first chapter. Is that first? Okay. Control F, please, and then maybe type Kamsa. Okay. Next. Okay. Come down next verse after this. Okay, next one, please. Or enemies, Control F, please, and enemies. ENEMIES. Next. Don't remember. Anyway, in this particular chapter, if we can look up, Narada says the enemies of the Lord are even greater than the devotees because they have such absorption in the Lord. Kamsa, Kamsa 24/7, he was thinking of Krishna. Oh, yes, thank you. Yeah, that's the same verse, previous verse. If you can go up. Narada Muni continued, by devotional service one cannot achieve such intense absorption in thoughts of the Supreme Personality of Godhead as one can through enmity toward Him. That is my opinion. Okay, we all will become demons. Enough. I mean, Narada's statement is there, we will do it. Right? Bhagavatam itself says, and in Bhagavatam it's not Hiranyakashipu glorifying his own thing, right? It is Narada saying. So Srila Prabhupada writes in the purport, if you go and read in the purport, that the demons, irrespective of how much absorption they have in Krishna, they can only get the liberation which is merging into the body of Krishna. Because you see the demons, everyone merged into body of Krishna. Shishupal, he was killed by Krishna at Rajasuya sacrifice, and what happened? He became the Gopi in Vrindavan? No, he merged into body of Krishna, he achieved the Sayuja Mukti, which is merging into the body of Krishna. For devotees, they don't like it. The devotees cherish that relationship of loving Krishna to such an extent, they don't even care about liberation. Forget Sayuja Mukti. For Sayuja Mukti, they don't want it. So indirectly the Lord punishes by giving them liberation. Superficially it appears that He is doing greater favor to them than the devotees. Because Krishna is Samoham Sarva Bhuteshu. He is equal to everyone. So His punishment also appears like much better, but in the sense devotees seem to be the losers in this context. Those who are actually going against Him and really becoming demons seems to be getting, but no. Krishna is that loving relationship He cherishes with His devotees. So it's different kind of thing. It's a whole section in Bhagavatam. It will be too much of a time to delve into it, because this was the same question Parikshit Maharaj asked. And Parikshit Maharaj the same question to Shuka. Shuka related the topic of Narada and Yudhishthira that happens in Rajasuya, and it's a intensely beautiful chapter. Utterly confusing if you are like just beginning. So if you can read that chapter, it will really answer your question. Is that okay? Okay. Other questions? Somebody? Okay.
Hare Krishna. As it was mentioned that it was said that this knowledge, it was meant specifically for kings because they guide people. How it's applicable today? Is it any other also classes of men, like for whom
Yeah.
it's- How about devotees? Like, that's also.
And Srila Prabhupada tried that. When he tried to meet Indira Gandhi, he was trying to tell the same thing. So I think one of the things he suggested was that cow slaughter should be kind of banned. So there were few points that he told the modern leaders on at least what you should do. In the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, there is also Srila Prabhupada's manifesto for the modern time. He gave few rules. One of the rules where the Ekadashi should be followed. He gave few specific rules. Now whether the leaders would follow those rules or not is another point. See, the modern context is you have democracy. Democracy means people can vote you or kick you out of office. And if you do go against people's wishes, even if it is beneficial for them, they'll kick you out. So imagine if there is an executive order signed by the President of United States, all the citizens must fast on the 11th day of waxing and waning moon, and no grains, forget beef. And it's a law. Anybody who don't do that, found caught, will be put into jail. It's an edict. It's within his power to actually write such an edict. But the effect of such an edict will be that forget the people, Congress will throw him out of office next day. They will call him, they will impeach him. Any nonsense you do, it's okay. Ekadashi declaration, fit to be impeached. See the problem? The modern people also have this, it's a challenge. The only way you can do that is the modern leaders are so convinced that I don't care about my office, but I need to do the right thing. And Krishna will protect them. With the faith that Krishna will protect. I will do this, irrespective of it will cost my career or whatever. But how many modern leaders are willing to take that kind of risk? Yes.
How about those leaders who are not from government, but those people like influential people in the world? I don't know, like stars or something. That people, they follow them. Not by some rules or something, but by their examples.
To an extent, yes. See, the thing is, you approach a person, or a person becomes famous because there are a lot of people who like what that person has, irrespective of the personal qualities. Let me explain. Just a simple question. Do film stars have any followers? Fans? Oh, why are they following that film star? Just psychologically think about why are you following that film star, or why are you a fan of that film star? Huh? Because okay, go ahead, Vijay.
When they are watching the movie, they are identifying themselves with the hero, and then they get to start to like him.
Okay, thank you, Mati.
I like that point that you made, and I remember when Shamasundar was here, and he gave his suggestion to be bold, take risks. This is exactly what they did when Srila Prabhupada was here. They thought, we'll preach to the Beatles. They targeted the Beatles. I think this goes to your point. And Prabhu's point is that on its own, the fame comes from material things. It comes from having what the majority of the people want, which is sex, drugs, rock and roll, wealth, all these things. But Prabhupada's movement, he actually gave us Bhagavad Gita to become leaders of men in a grassroots kind of way. And that very idea of approaching famous people was something pursued in the older days. In fact, in Los Angeles Temple, we had a department that was kind of targeted for the stars, and we would preach to Madonna and Boy George, and they would come into the temple regularly. I can name many of them because they have a little bit more influence over greater numbers of people. So if you're so inclined, go for it.
And you go for Mark Zuckerberg.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. But often if they are convinced, if people who are influential people are convinced are willing to stake everything. The Beatles were so convinced that, we are going to, irrespective of, they didn't know if they put Hare Krishna in their songs, will the charts go up or go down, or will it be popular, or will they be destroyed? But they did it anyways. So if you are able to preach to influential people and cultivate faith in them, then there will definitely be some revolution. Now, it will be an interesting statistic to know like how many people came to Krishna consciousness through Beatles. That will be a nice statistic. He came? Wonderful. I see. There we go. So you should do it. You have Mataji's blessings. All right. You are still at 9? How many more time we have? Do you want, anybody wants to take a break? Because I don't want to be broken by you, so you take a break. You're good? Take a 5, yeah, people want a 5-minute break? All right. So we show 133. It's 140 sharp we will start. We still have 42 minus 9 is 31 verses to go. 33, thank you. 33 verses to go, so. Text 10. Kindly repeat after me. Vitaraga bhaya krodha manmaya mamupashrita bahavo jnana tapasa puta madbhavamagataha.
Being freed from attachment, fear, and anger, being fully absorbed in me, and taking refuge in me, many, many persons in the past became purified by knowledge of me, and thus they all attained transcendental love for me.
Thank you. Text 11. Ye yatha mam prapadyante tams tataiva bhajamyaham mama vartmanu vartmante manushya partha sarvashah.
Translation. As all surrender unto me, I reward them accordingly. Everyone follows my path in all respects, O son of Pritha.
So here Krishna mentions that those who seek him as Brahman, he reveals as Brahman. Those who seek him as Paramatma, and those who seek him as Bhagwan. Krishna says that I am capable of revealing myself to whatever way a devotee approaches me here. Text 12. Kankshanta karmanam siddhim yajanta iha devata kshipram himanushe loke siddhir bhavati karmaja.
Men in this world desire success in fruitive activities, and therefore they worship the demigods. Quickly, of course, men get results from fruitive work in this world.
Text 13. Chaturvarnyam maya srishtam gunakarma vibhagasha tasya kartaram api mam vidya kartaram avyayam. Sorry, thank you.
According to the three modes of material nature and the work associated with them, the four divisions of human society are created by me. And although I am the creator of this system, you should know that I am yet the non-doer, being unchangeable.
Thank you. So Krishna, in this verse, he talks about though he creates these four kinds of systems, he is yet the non-doer, which means that Krishna is not involved in that particular kind of thing. Why is that important? We can realize that in next few verses. Text 14. Namam karmani limpanti name karma phale spriha iti mam yobhijanati karma bhirna sabbadyate.
There is no work that affects me, nor do I aspire for the fruits of action. One who understands this truth about me also does not become entangled in the fruitive reactions of work.
So here Krishna is saying that what is the reason? Because Krishna says there is no work that affects me, nor I aspire for fruits. I create these chaturvarnyam, all these four divisions, but I am not yet the non-doer. All for knowing these, Krishna says those who know this nature, they are also not affected by the reactions of the work. in the modern context, if you can see, one way we can avoid feeling envious or feeling guilty about the nature of this world, or when people are quote unquote successful or brag about themselves or made to be successful by media, is all these activities are done by the modes of nature. A person's karma is being manifest. That's about it, whether good or bad. So in that way, you are neither envious when somebody is become suddenly either famous or wealthy or powerful, neither you get depressed or become overwhelmingly compassion if somebody is undergoing through a very bad situation. It's equal in both. And when we know this nature of Krishna and we work according to that nature of Krishna, then we are also not bound by the reactions. Because activity, this is the next few verses are really striking for us. Many of the devotees have this common notion that I should retire, and in that way I can full time serve God. And the earliest possible retirement I can have, the more I have time to serve God. By that stretch, Arjuna wanted to retire. And God said exactly the opposite. So, hold on to that thought for a minute, because we can see how by work itself one can achieve Krishna rather than by thinking of not doing work. We'll just continue a little bit more. Text 15. Evam jnatva kritam karma purvair api mumukshubhihi kuru karmaiva tasmatvam purvai purvataram kritam.
All the liberated souls in ancient times acted with this understanding of my transcendental nature. Therefore, you should perform your duty following in their footsteps.
Thank you. Can we have some light here? Maybe it's a little, for some reason it's... So what does Krishna say in this verse? All the conditioned souls acted like that in the previous time? Did Krishna say conditioned souls? Liberated souls also act. If they are liberated, why are they acting? The reason is, Krishna says, if you know my nature, even if you are liberated, sometimes you will be acting, and according to my instructions. The way Krishna is placing each and everyone at the station that we are in life, a job, family, whatever be it, it is by Krishna's mercy we are there, and Krishna is saying you should act. But you can act in such a way that can cause reactions, karma bandhan, or you can act in such a way that the same activities can be liberating. So it is not that we retire and our activities become all perfect, but even within our activities, it can be, the perfection can be achieved. Right? Otherwise, Krishna will say, all the liberated souls acted like this understanding according to my nature. So to know Krishna, even not from his rasa perspective, his beautiful threefold bending form, or even just from the fact that he works without aspiring for the fruits, that itself is enough to liberate us from the reactions of the cycle of birth and death. Isn't that like a good thing to know? So, whether one does duty or not, it's up to Krishna. The way Krishna says you will retire, you retire. Otherwise, you will be somehow or other forced to work. But that quality of work should be always in conscious of Krishna. Eventually, this is from the Jnana perspective. But from the bhakti perspective, yes, if one is rapidly advancing in spiritual life, then because the reason I'll interrupt, if this is true, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna himself. When did he take sannyas? Didn't he give up work at 24? He had a 16-year-old wife, a 60-year-old mother. He left. Isn't that something really contradictory to what he is preaching here? The reason is in our love of Godhead, we reach a certain stage. Mahaprabhu reached such a stage where separation from Krishna was unbearable for him. And he could not think of anything but Krishna. And therefore, he left his family members. But there was another reason also. Krishna, first of all, is independent, because we cannot imitate his pastimes. Second thing is, he wanted to preach to those who had escaped his plan of inundating the whole world with Krishna consciousness, namely the Mayavadis, all these people who escaped his plan to make them Krishna conscious. He said, at least by taking sannyas, I'll deliver them. So there was twofold reason for that. But from an ordinary course of activities, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, actually, this is a wonderful pastime. He took sannyas and he went to which place first? First he went to Nilachal or Jagannath Puri. And on the way, he asked his companions, did you bring anything along with you? Or did you get any money along with you? And there were few, maybe about 8 or 10 devotees of his, they were following him all the way to Jagannath Puri. So, no Lord, we didn't get anything. Because you didn't ask us to get anything, we didn't get anything. He said, that's good. Had you got anything, I would have asked you to turn back, because we depend on Krishna. So if one is in that stage of fearlessness, not only of maintaining himself, but his family is taken care of, then you can maybe think about it. But unnecessarily retirement or sannyas is not something that that one thinks about like that. Because it's better one do one's activity in whatever station of life we are in, and then do our sadhana and do our service. Makes sense? Yes, Vijayaram. 413. You had a question on 413. Yes. So the mic has to be kept close, yeah, otherwise people won't.
Here, Lord says he's a non-doer, meaning he is not responsible for creating this system. How to understand?
So, assume that there is a school and there is a 5th grade, or there is school and there are different grades. There are some special needs child who will be given to some grade. There are intellectually very, very gifted. They will be in another thing. Then there are mediocre, they are in one batch. Maybe there are girls that need some special thing. So would you blame the school headmaster for creating such grades? Because we have these 3 modes of nature, goodness, passion and ignorance, and people are associated with that. Krishna says, I've created these orders so that people who are associated with different natures can find their livelihood through these particular systems. So in that way, he's saying, I'm the non-doer. It's not like I created someone to be in the mode of passion. I created someone, it's the jiva's own conditioning that you get, and I'm just facilitating this so that they can, it could be a Shudra or a Brahmana or a Vaishya, but at least there is a structure in place that they can earn their livelihood. Because the Lord is the maintainer, yes or yes? So for part of the maintenance package is that he has to do all these things. Otherwise, how will people maintain? I mean, in the modern context, yeah, you will go to college, you will do all those. But in the previous times, if you're a Brahmana, you have to do a certain set of activities. And that was natural. Is that okay? All right. Okay. Text 16. Right? We completed text 15? Yes. Text 16. Kindly repeat. Kim karma kim akarmeti kavayopyatra mohita tatte karma pravakshami yajñatva mokshase shubhat. Prasanna, did you get a chance to read? Okay.
Even the intelligent are bewildered in determining what is action and what is inaction. Now I shall explain to you what action is, knowing which you shall be liberated from all misfortune.
Thank you. Text 17. Karmano hyapi bodhavyam bodhavyam cha vikarmanaha akarmanascha bodhavyam gahana karmano gatihi.
The intricacies of action are very hard to understand. Therefore, one should know properly what action is, what forbidden action is, and what inaction is.
So, how many types of actions Krishna is talking here? But know for certain, unless you know what is what, then people act, right? In the common context, people just act. They don't even realize what is action, what is inaction, and what is forbidden action. Who knows? Please remember all these three things. You might show up in the exam paper. So Krishna gives those. So a karma, or what is action and what is inaction and what is forbidden action. So let's read the next verse. Then we'll get complete clarity of thought. Text 18. This will be very clarifying. Karmanya karmaya pashed akarmani cha karmayaha sabuddhiman manusheshu sayukta kritsna karma krit.
One who sees inaction in action and action in inaction is intelligent among men, and he is in the transcendental position, although engaged in all sorts of activities.
Very clear. We can go to the next verse. Actually, it is clear. It is reasonably simple. So, let's read the purport for that. It is short purport, so it will give a little bit more light. A person, purport. A person acting in Krishna consciousness is naturally free from the bonds of karma. His activities are all performed for Krishna, therefore he does not enjoy or suffer any effects of work. Consequently, he is intelligent in the human society, even though he is engaged in all sorts of activities for Krishna. Akarma means without reaction to work. The impersonalist ceases fruitive activities out of fear, and so that the resultant action may not be a stumbling block on the path of self-realization. But the personalist knows rightly that his position as the eternal servitor of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, he engages himself in the activities of Krishna consciousness. Because everything is done for Krishna, he enjoys only transcendental happiness in the discharge of this service. Those who are engaged in this process are known to be without desire for personal sense gratification. The sense of eternal servitorship to Krishna makes one immune to all sorts of reactionary elements of work. So, one who sees inaction in action and action in inaction. So, action means whatever acts we do, and inaction is something that reactions don't come from that action. Inaction means no reactions. So, when you chant Hare Krishna, is it inaction, action, or forbidden action? Why is it inaction? We don't get karma. So, one who sees inaction in when you chant Hare Krishna, are you acting? As in, like, you're doing something, your hand is moving, your lips are moving, your ear hearing, it's also action for the ear. But even though all these actions are going on, it is still inaction because there is no reaction, right? But what about the other one? That is a little bit easier to understand, but the other part is not so easy to understand. One who sees inaction in action is good. That's action in inaction. What is it? Action in inaction, what Krishna is trying to say is, if you prematurely stop acting, then you see action in inaction. Arjuna was prematurely trying to stop the fight. He said, I don't want to fight. In fact, Krishna said, sin actually comes to those who give up their duty. Right? You remember, see, the verse is 20. Let's go back to that particular verse. It's a little bit different. Text 33, second chapter, 33 verse. If, however, you do not perform your religious duty of fighting, then you will certainly incur for neglecting your duties and thus lose your reputation as a... So, Arjuna's inaction was actually leading him to action or reactions. He refused to fight, and the result of his not fighting was, Krishna said, you will actually incur sin. Can you see that? So that's why Krishna says it's very hard even for a common man to understand the subtleties of karma. The karma is so subtle that what a person is doing, you don't know the reactions, only Krishna can judge fully. So one way of being liberal or open is, we cannot judge others because we don't know what the reactions are. Krishna himself says that it is very hard. So our best bet is not to, of course there are some gross things that are happening in a bigger picture, we might have to, we judge for what they are. You should be discriminating, but at the same time you can't be judgmental or opinionated or having prejudices or pre-assumptions in your stuff. And also, the reactions come not just on a basis, but also on the emergency. So, forbidden action will have sinful reactions, yes or yes. Unless it's taken in emergency, it doesn't. I'll give a simple example. When Maharaj Prithu was ruling the kingdom, his citizens were starving to the point that they were on the verge of death because of starvation. He chastised and he challenged Mother Earth that why are you not producing food grains? And Mother Earth took the form of a cow, and Maharaj Prithu chased her. Everywhere she went, he chased her. And the whole intention was to actually kill her. And he said, I'm going to kill you and feed the flesh to these to the subjects. Now that seems to be a completely forbidden action from any perspective. But in the time of extreme emergencies, again, you don't decide what is emergency or what is not. On a daily basis it happens, it's not an emergency. So please be very careful. Again, nobody knows properly what karma is what, so you better not, speculate. And the problem comes is, and the problem that comes is that that's what Krishna says. So you better do your duty. You are saying, right? Let us be a demon. It is better that be a demon because it seems to be they are getting better chance. You don't know what Krishna has in mind for you. Your demoniac activities might result in a whole other stuff. In fact, in the 16th chapter, when we read next semester, Krishna says what he does with demons. He'll plunge them more and more into the abominable species of life. So let's not challenge Krishna. Hey, you are doing that with the demons, let me try. Don't take chances with him. He has intelligence infinitely deeper, and he has this very, very subtle way of getting stuff done. So, which better we abide by his words. Sarva dharman parityajya. Okay, sir, we will do that. So there are subtle. This whole karma is so subtle. Often we judge, we assume, we think, this guy is doing like this, it's nonsense. He'll go to hell for. But we don't know the circumstances. At least till you know, don't judge. Did Krishna say that or not? In the 17th verse. Let's go back to the... No. Go back to our regular one, 4th, 17. Go up a little bit. The intricacies of actions are very hard to understand. So it's very hard to understand because the karma is very subtle. See, all these, if you get little detailed knowledge, then your envy won't be there so much, because Krishna is perfectly judging. People have done their activities. Krishna is perfectly judging. Even if you think that they have done negative actions, they are prospering, but you don't know what the future reactions are. Pandavas were naturally devoted. They had to suffer. And Kauravas were naturally against Krishna, but it seems they enjoyed. But in the end, it turned out to be completely different. So, all right. 20? No. 19. Thank you. We'll go a little faster. And no, actually we will go a little bit slower and then go fast from 25 onwards. Text 19. Yasya sarve samarambhaha kama sankalpa varjitaha jnanagnidagda karmanam tam ahu panditam buddhaha. Apurupa Mataji and others, those who need a chance in the back, please.
One is understood to be in full knowledge, whose every end-over is driven the desire of our sense gratification. He is said by sages to be works for whom the reaction of work have been burned up by the fire of perfect knowledge.
So, Jnana Yoga is what we are talking, right? So, why do you need Jnana Yoga? What's the benefit? What's in for me? What's the return on my investment? And Krishna is saying this is the return on your investment. That karma that is so subtle and everybody is bound by chains that are holding them by karma, Krishna says perfectly burnt by this fire of knowledge. And usually the sense gratification, people say, this is like you're crazy people. You're especially relatives and friends and family members who say that I don't do this, I don't do that, I go to temple, I do this thing. You guys are crazy. why are you not enjoying life? But enjoying life essentially is nothing but why are you not having sense gratification? Why are you not having unrestricted, not the restricted, not unrestricted sense gratification? You should be free to choose whatever you have to do. You shouldn't be bound by all these old archaic customs and rituals and what nonsense. But Krishna says you do this, you are bound, but you are taking a spiritual path that will naturally make you happy. So why won't anybody do that? Unless you are in ignorance. Yes or yes? So if somebody says that, then you know why that you are doing that. Internally you get that strength to say, okay, maybe I know a little bit more than you. So thank you. You can go on your path, but I'll go on my path. If they are too envious and egoistic and atheistic kind of situation. Text 20. Tyaktva karma phala sangam nitya tripto nirashrayah karmanya abhipravrittopi naiva kinchit karoti saha.
Abandoning all attachment to the results of his activities, ever satisfied and independent, he performs no fruitive actions, although engaged in all kinds of undertakings.
So here, instead of fearing work or thinking that work itself is a problem, if you can change the quality of that work, then you can be undertaking all sorts of work. And then the question next comes is how much work you need to undertake. The question is how hard should you work? Or how not hard you should work. Because you work too hard, then it's a problem. If you don't work at all, it's a problem. At least in Bay Area, it's a severe problem. Text 21. Nirashiryata chittatma tyakta sarva parigraha shariram kevalam karma kurvan napnoti kilbisham. Back in the front. Where it is? Who was the next done? Oh, okay. Yeah, go ahead.
So, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Such a man of understanding acts with mind and intelligence perfectly controlled, gives up all sense of proprietorship over his possessions, and acts only for the bare necessities of life. Thus working, he is not affected by sinful reactions.
So basically, sell our homes, quit our jobs, live under the bridge. Is that what Krishna is saying here? Because bare minimum, right? Maybe put in a tent in the forest. Bare minimum, no utility bills, no mortgages. So the reason is that Krishna is saying whatever is needed for this body, do it. And by that extension, whatever need is for the family. So if you have a grahastha, means that you need a house to have family. And so to maintain that particular house and family, you need to work whatever you need to work. So at work also, the motive shouldn't be too much. If possible, you should always try, but it shouldn't be too much into the whole consciousness is how can I grow. And if the work comes, then the work is coated by fruitive mentality. You should try to grow. Unfortunately, I'll deal with that also. The bare necessities of bodies has become also part of growth. If you don't grow, then you are a loser. At least some companies judge like that. Some companies might be, okay, you are where you are, we respect where you are, you don't want to grow, that's fine. But some companies, they say, you have to grow, otherwise you're out. Then maybe you have to also work. But the problem is, each individual devotee need to decide what is the appropriate situation, keeping Krishna in center. If it means that I have to grow, but I have to work 14 hours a day and barely have time to chant, forget family, forget other things, I don't even have time to chant, then you might need to re-decide on what you ought to do. But the rule of thumb is the minimum or the minimum effort is needed to keep the lights going. That's the kind of situation. If that minimum includes that you have to grow, then you have to grow. If the minimum means that you live in such a competitive world where you have to grow, then that is minimum. Because everybody decides their own minimum. Or in other words, for a sannyasi, there is some minimum, and for a grihastha, there is certain minimum. For a sannyasi, which might be maximum. For a sannyasi, house might not be a big thing. If a sannyasi goes and says, I need to buy a house, please pay for my mortgage, then you might have serious doubts. But for the grihastha, it's perfectly normal. I'll pay for my own mortgage. That is, I have to work. So you see the minimum where it goes. But nevertheless, Krishna is saying you have to work for that minimum. You just can't simply say, I'll come and feed you. You're chanting Hare Krishna. He does that anyways, but he doesn't. He says you also do your part. Makes sense? Which just should give us impetus how nice it is if you go back to spiritual world. You really don't have to worry so much about all these It is. By nature, material world is complicated. And not just now. Please understand, it's not just now. From time immemorial, the material world has been a complicated place. Arjuna had complications, that's why Bhagavad Gita came about in the first place. So it's not new, or it's not just me. Oh, why me? No, it's not you, it's everybody. Everybody is, at some time or other. Now they may be happy, or they might not have any problem, but everybody has to answer these questions. Yeah, I know. Anyways, any other questions? Actually, because this is an important thing. When Krishna talks about all these things, it is really meant for us, But for a person in the fruitive mentality, what it becomes is my position, my bank balance, my family, my wealth. That becomes all in all. It becomes so encompassing, so that the mind doesn't even have any idea of spiritual realization. So that is a very sad state of affair. We should all do our work. We should, wherever needed, you have to compete. Amongst, who knows, there are, why forget sports persons among devotees? Arjuna had to compete. See, Arjuna had to compete to win, right? So it's competition in of itself is not a negative thing. Neither should we shy away from it. But if that competition involves a lot of endeavor, so if there is one position at work, and then you and 4 other candidates are being considered for that position, you do your best, depend on Krishna. But not to the point that I have to somehow beat, and to the point I have to work 20 hours a day no matter what I have to do, and taking a toll on your health. Then probably you should say, that's not the kind of competition I want to get involved in. But Arjuna's competition was different. Either you fight, you win your kingdom, or you die. Period. So if that life or death situation, then there is no other choice. Make sense? Or I'm boring you so much that half an hour meeting of Trump will be like a walk in the park. Yes. All right. So the next few verses we can go faster because they talk about sacrifice. And but this is something that I thought we should spend a little more time on. And then the next one, the destiny, fate versus free will. Kindly repeat. This is a nice verse too. Yadrichalabha santushto dvandvatito vimatsaraha samah siddhava siddhau cha kritvapi na nibhadyate.
He who is satisfied with gain which comes of its own accord who is free from duality and does not envy, who is steady in both success and failure, is never entangled, although performing actions.
Thank you. So here Krishna, can you see that Krishna is delinking actions with results? He is saying a person or a performer of an activity is not envious, he is equal in, and he says the gain which comes of it. He never said the gain is coming because of performer's action. The idea that somehow, so the problem is people think that I am the doer and because of me I created my own success or failure. Krishna says no. The gain comes of its own accord, you keep doing your work. Right? So the next verse, text 23. Oh, okay, we'll go fast. Gata sangasya muktasya jnanavastita cetasa yajna charatah karma. Thank you. Yajnaya charatah karma samagram praviliyate.
The work of a man who is unattached to the modes of material nature and who is fully situated in transcendental knowledge merges entirely into transcendence.
Thank you. Text 24. Brahmarpanam brahmahavir brahmagno brahmanahutam brahmaivate na gantavyam brahma karma samadhina.
A person who is fully observed in Krishna consciousness is sure to attain the spiritual kingdom because of his full contribution to spiritual activities in which the consummation is absolute and what which is offered is of the same spiritual nature.
Thank you. Text 25. Daivam eva pare yajñam yogina paryupasate brahmagnau apare yajñam yajñe naivopajuhvati.
Some yogis perfectly worship the demigods by offering different sacrifices to them, and some of them offer sacrifices in the fire of the Supreme Brahman.
Thank you. Text 26. Shrotradin indriyanyanye samyamagnishu juhvati shabdadin vishayananya indriyagnishu juhvati.
Some, the unadulterated brahmacharis, sacrifice the hearing process and the senses in the fire of mental control, and others, the regulative householders, sacrifice the objects of senses in the fire of senses.
Thank you. 27. Okay. Sarvanindriya karmani prana karmani chapare atma samyamya yogagno juhvati jnana dipate.
Others who are interested in achieving self-realization through control of the mind and senses offer the functions of all the senses and of the life breath as oblations into the fire of the controlled mind.
Thank you. Next verse, please. Dravya yajna stapo yajna yoga yajna stata pare swadhyaya jnana yajnascha yatayaha samshita vrataha.
Having accepted strict vows, some become enlightened by sacrificing their possessions, and others by performing severe austerities, by practicing the yoga of eightfold mysticism, or by studying the Vedas to advance in transcendental knowledge.
Thank you. Next verse. Apane juhvati pranam prane panam tata pare prana panagati rudhva pranayama parayanaha apare niyatahara pranan praneshu juhvati.
Translation. Still others who are inclined to the process of breath restraint to remain in trance practice by offering the movement of the outgoing breath into the incoming and the incoming breath into the outgoing, and thus at last remains in trance, stopping all breathing. Others curtailing the eating process, they offer the outgoing breath into itself as a sacrifice.
Thank you. Text 30. So what is the results? It seems to be a lot of sacrifices there, right? Wow. All right. We'll discuss. 4:30. Sarve pyete yajna vido yajna kshapita kalmashaha yajna sishtamrita bhujo yanti brahma sanatanam.
All these performers who know the meaning of sacrifice become cleansed of sinful reactions, and having tasted the nectar of the results of sacrifices, they advance towards the supreme eternal atmosphere.
So here, actually in these few verses, Krishna talks of different sacrifices. And the acharyas say that some sacrifices are mentioned for householders, and some sacrifices are mentioned for brahmacharis or celibates. Dravya yajna is the yajna which is done by like gross matter, that is usually for the householders, whereas controlling of incoming breath versus outgoing breath, and controlling the senses and all that, that's mainly for the brahmacharis and others. But what is the result? That one cleanses one's reactions and one achieves towards Brahman. And then after Krishna describes these, then the next step he says is, what happens if I don't do this? This is too much of work. I'm sorry, I'm not going to do all this stuff. Okay, let's see what happens in 31. Nayam lokostya yajnasya kutonya kuru sattama.
O best of the Kuru dynasty, without sacrifice one can never live happily on this planet or in this life. What then of the next?
Thank you. So Krishna is very emphatic that human life is meant for sacrifice. And if you don't, then the happiness is severely lacking. The modern world, because this knowledge is completely lacking, people in general are unhappy. People living on this planet, you see that there's so much of problems. People talk of problems, people talk of stress, Because people in general, the idea of happiness is given by Krishna, and then we need to follow it and implement it. And as Mataji said, we need to tell the leaders. Text 32. Evam bahuvida yajna vitata brahmano mukhe karmajan vidditan sarvan evam jnatva vimokshase.
All these different types of sacrifice are approved by the Vedas, and all of them are born of different types of work. Knowing them as such, you will become liberated.
Thank you. So at least in the 4th chapter, the liberation is coming about. Practical aspect of liberation is coming out. Next verse, please. 33. Shreyan dravyamayad yajna Jnana yajna parantapa Sarvam karma akhilam partha Jnane parisamapyate.
O chastiser of the enemy, the sacrifice performed in knowledge is better than the mere sacrifice of material possessions. After all, O son of Pritha, all sacrifices of work culminate in transcendental knowledge.
What do all the sacrifices culminate in? So to have that be situated in the transcendental knowledge, one has to perform sacrifice. So till this point, Krishna has given so many ways you can do. You can do this yajna, you can do that yajna, this breathing process. And Krishna is now, after telling all this stuff, where you can be situated in knowledge, Krishna now gives a shortcut. Okay, next verse. Let's do the shortcut verse. It's easier. Tad viddhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninas
tattvadarshinaha. Just try to learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master.
Yeah. Anyway, I don't know. You figure out.
Inquire from him submissively and then.
Yeah, Vijaram, you have to put the mic on. People are there online.
Just try to learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master. Inquire from him submissively and render service unto him. The self-realized souls can impart knowledge unto you because they have seen the truth.
So here, Krishna is giving the shortcut. Instead of doing all the sacrifices and try to be situated in knowledge, approach the spiritual master and learn from him. It's a practical thing, because when Srila Prabhupada came to West, people didn't do all these things. They didn't offer outgoing air into ingoing and ingoing into outgoing, and they didn't put fire of sacrifices. They were neither brahmacharis. They approached Srila Prabhupada and rendered submissively service unto him, and the knowledge automatically opened up. So this is the shortcut, right? It's a practical proof that this works. That with the pranipatena, it's a shortcut. It's much easier. And in fact, and Krishna says that once you do this route, there is more guarantee in there. There is more strength in that, as next verse says. If we go to the next verse. Yes, Srivas Pandit Prabhu.
Prabhu, can we say that this is a type of sacrifice where one has to give up one's ego and approach in a humble attitude?
Yes, because pranipad and pariprashna is just that. When you do pranipad means you humble yourself, and then it's easier. Yeah, maybe it's shortcut, but as you said, it's more people who are on the false ego platform, they may not like it that much. I can get this knowledge on my own and let me do all these sacrifices that are mentioned in the Vedas. But here is the deal though. Implicitly Krishna is saying that, what does he say? There are many types of sacrifices you can do. And all those sacrifices are mentioned in the Vedas. And you can do those sacrifices and get what? Knowledge. Yes or yes? But to learn Vedas, where do you have to go? You have to go to a spiritual master. So whether you take that route, but that route is more difficult, but you don't need a spiritual master, but you might not need a spiritual master directly to serve. You can learn from someone else and you can do that. Or you can do it from some faith. For example, Gopakumar, he was given mantra by his Guru Maharaj. And then he just chanted. There was no, he didn't know how to do that, what to do, and so on and so forth. But this is more easier. And you said definitely there is some sacrifice involved here, for sure. But this is more surer process. And the results are even better. As Krishna says, Yajñātvā punarmoham. Let's do that little louder. Yajñātvā punarmoham. Evam yasyasi pandava. Yena bhutanyaseshani. Drakshyasyatmani athomai.
Having obtained real knowledge.
Having obtained real knowledge from a self-realized soul, you will never fall again into such illusion. For by this knowledge you will see that all living beings are but part of the Supreme, or in other words, they are mine.
Thank you. Text 36. Apiched asipapebhya sarvebhya papakrittama sarvam jnana plavenaiva rijinam santarishyasi. Good. Please.
Even if you are considered to be the most sinful of all sinners, when you are situated in the boat of transcendental knowledge, you will be able to cross over the ocean of miseries.
So the acharyas kind of clarify here, what do you mean if you are considered the most sinful of all sinners? And if you are sinners, then the karmic reactions always will act upon you, right? If you are a sinner means that you will have karmic reactions. But here, by knowing this knowledge, all the actions are burnt up. So is it a free license? You get this knowledge and perform sinful activities with no consequences? The acharyas say that it's an impossibility that Krishna talks to. Even if you have this knowledge, you will not commit sinful acts. Even perchance you commit sinful acts, this knowledge will burn up those reactions. So, and mind you, we are still on Jnana Yoga. Text 38, we have 4 more verses, so we are doing well on time, so if you have any questions or comments. Alright, let's go through this. Text 37. Yataidamsi samiddhognir bhasmasat kuruterjuna Jnanagni sarva karmani bhasmasat kurute tata.
As a blazing fire turns firewood to ashes, O Arjuna, so does the fire of knowledge burn to ashes all reactions to material activities.
Thank you. So, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur used to say, the only thing in the world that is troubling this world is ignorance, is lack of Krishna consciousness. And, if you have this knowledge, then Krishna says that it really burns up the reactions of all the material things. Text 38. Nahi jnanena sadrisham pavitram iha vidyate tatsvayam yoga samsiddha kale natmani vindati.
Translation. In this world, there is nothing so sublime and pure as transcendental knowledge. Such knowledge is the mature fruit of all mysticism, and one who has become accomplished in the practice of devotional service enjoys this knowledge within himself in due course of time.
Thank you. See, this is another point though. When you read this chapter, you will get like, maybe I should go after Gyan, because Gyan is nice and Krishna is praising this. We should do this. But the beauty is, Bhagavatam says that by unalloyed devotional service to Krishna, Vairagya and Gyan will automatically come. What is the verse? Yes, go ahead, going through. Okay, let's all repeat that verse. Prabhu Venudhari, please pull it up. 127. Thank you. Let's do that. Yeah. Kindly repeat. Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojitaha Janayatyashu Vairagyam Jnanam Chayad Ahaitukam. I'll read the translation. By rendering devotional service unto the personality of Godhead Sri Krishna, one immediately acquires causeless knowledge and detachment from this world. So that same jnana that comes from performing all these severe activities, Krishna says that you perform unalloyed devotional service, this knowledge will automatically come. There is no extraneous endeavor. The reason we study Bhagavad Gita is we get a very fine appreciation for what we are doing as devotional service. With these people talk of bhakti, 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 and this, unalloyed bhakti, shuddha bhakti, this bhakti, what is that? So we can see on a practical basis. In this age, anyway, it is impossible to do all these sacrifices and everything. But by performing unalloyed devotional service to Krishna, knowledge is an automatical byproduct. Right? So let's go back to the 4th chapter. Thank you. 39. 3 more verses and then we can 4 more verses. Shraddhavallabhate jnanam tatpara samyatendriyaha jnanam labdva param shantim achirena adhigacchati.
A faithful man who is dedicated to transcendental knowledge and who subdues his senses is eligible to achieve such knowledge, and having achieved it, he quickly attains his supreme spiritual peace.
Thank you. Text 40. Agnyascha shraddhadanascha samshayatma vinashyati Nayam lokosti na paro na sukham samshayatmanaha.
But ignorant and faithless persons who doubt the revealed scriptures do not attain God consciousness, they fall down. For the doubting soul, there is happiness neither in this world nor in the next.
Thank you. So we have this thing that, money can't buy happiness, right? You have that. So we should change that. Sacrifice to Lord can buy happiness. It's the words of Krishna, it's not my words, yes? He says that for those, who are sacrifice, who perform sacrifice and who are faithful, then there is happiness. But those who are doubting and who are faithless, there is neither happiness in this life nor in the next life. Text 41. yoga sanyasta karmanam jnana sanchinna samshayam atmavantam na karmani nibadnanti dhananjaya.
One who acts in devotional service, renouncing the fruits of his actions, and whose doubts have been destroyed by transcendental knowledge, is situated factually in the self. Thus, he is not bound by the reactions of work, O conqueror of the riches.
Thank you. 42. Tasmadajnana sambhutam Hritstam jnanasinatmanah Chitvainam samshayam yogam Atishtotishtha bharata.
Therefore, the doubts which have arisen in your heart out of ignorance should be slashed by the weapon of knowledge. Armed with yoga, O Bharata, stand and fight.
Thank you. So, because the transcendental knowledge gives a deeper insight and discrimination of what is action and what is inaction, then Krishna is giving the final verdict that if you arm yourself with this knowledge, then you have no doubts, or any doubts that have come to your mind can be slashed. Otherwise, if you don't have this knowledge, then you'll be always confused. So that is the import of this particular chapter. Any questions? Yes, Preeti Sundar Mataji.
Prabhu, there's been mention about doubting and faithlessness. So, what is the difference between doubts and having no faith? Like doubts we will have, but
so Arjuna, when he was put into such a situation in the first chapter, he was taking the role of a human being. He had faith but had a lot of doubts, and that caused him not to act. A faithless person, anyway, he doesn't act. He doesn't even bother to hear. But even if you hear, if you have doubts, you still cannot act. So two classes of people have issues. Is that okay? The reason I'm looking at the phone, please forgive me, is that, Vijay had sent me a bunch of questions and I wanted to answer in this class. So that's the reason I am looking for that. If anybody else also has any other questions, you can please go ahead in the meanwhile. Okay. Search.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Yes.
Just to extend on what Mataji was asking.
Yes.
It said that the doubting person is condemned more than the faithless.
Mm-hmm.
Can you elaborate on that?
The doubting person is condemned and faithless? I didn't get that. Why did you get that feeling? That is in the purport? Let's go. Read that purport. It's always good to read the purport. Which verse? That will be $438. Huh? 40. Thank you. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. I'll read the translation just to recap. But the ignorant and faithless persons who doubt the revealed scriptures do not attain God consciousness. They fall down. For the doubting soul, there is happiness neither in this world nor in the next. Purport. by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Out of many standard and authoritative revealed scriptures, the Bhagavad Gita is the best. Persons who are almost like animals have no faith in or knowledge of the standard of revealed scriptures. And some, even though they have knowledge of or can cite passages from the revealed scriptures, have actually no faith in these words. Although even though others may have faith in the scriptures like Bhagavad Gita, they do not believe in or worship the personality of Godhead Sri Krishna. Such persons cannot have any standing in Krishna consciousness. They fall down. Out of all the above mentioned persons, those who have no faith and are always doubtful make no progress at all. So here Srila Prabhupada is giving both the categories, right? Okay, let's move on. Men without faith in God and His revealed word find no good in this world nor in the next. For them there is no happiness whatsoever. One should therefore follow the principles of revealed scriptures with faith and thereby be raised to the platform of knowledge. Only this knowledge will help one become promoted to the transcendental platform of spiritual understanding. In other words, doubtful persons have no status whatsoever in spiritual emancipation. One should therefore follow in the footsteps of the great acharyas who are in the disciplic succession and thereby attain success. So specifically there is no place where it is mentioned.
Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur's commentary also. So he there mentions that doubting one is especially criticized in the last line.
Okay. Well, in one sense, half knowledge can be dangerous. And in Ishopanishad also it is mentioned about how those who worship the demigods go to the darkest region and still more so are the worshippers of the Absolute. You remember that particular verse? So we read into detail of what it can be. When you completely have no faith in Krishna, then you can screw out meanings and that can be even more dangerous. Yes. Jagrini Mataji.
In that purport, we all know that what moves us through life and through consciousness is our desires. Ultimately, it's the desires in our heart. And as you hear and chant in Krishna consciousness, you should be developing more and more faith. Yeah. And if you're not, it's actually because of a desire to not, to actually a desire to doubt. Mm-hmm. And when I read this, these strong words in this purport by Srila Prabhupada, my understanding is that we have to give up the desire to doubt. Yeah. So it's in our culture to be atheistic. Mm. And most people are, and it's a trend to be that way. So in Krishna consciousness, although if you're feeling some sincere doubt, we should address that. Yeah. But with the attitude of wanting to dispel all those doubts.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Wonderful point. Any other questions? Who is the Sunday feast speaker today? Okay. Please, I can look it up. So, Anirban's right? Yeah. How can we do our work for Krishna in a practical way so that he is pleased? So, how can we do our work for Krishna in a practical way so that he is pleased? Well, he is given many ways how to please him in Bhagavad Gita, but the practical way is, Anirban, whatever you are doing, you go on book distribution sometimes, so you can do that. You can chant. And you can not criticize Vaishnavas, so that's the best way to please Krishna. Unless you had something very specific related to this chapter, it was a little generic question, so my answer was generic. So one last, well, there are few questions which were asked by Vijay. I don't know how much time we have. One of the questions he asked is why Bhishma and Drona are fighting on the side of Duryodhana. Why didn't they stop the humiliation upon Draupadi in the assembly hall? Well, Bhishma and Drona were the only person who protested when Draupadi was being humiliated was Vidura, and then there was another Vikarna. So the reason was that Bhishma was bound to his vow to protect the throne of Hastinapur, and when that was happening in there, he had to either break that vow or he had to talk out. So for some divine reason, he chose to be silent at that point of time. Because please understand, Bhishma is a Mahajana. Mahajana yena gata sapanta. So he was not an ordinary character. So there was a reason why he did that. But later it is shown that Krishna wanted him to fight against him, and he wanted to reveal the episode in the entire Mahabharata about how that has happened. So there were many reasons for that. Why Drona did, the Mahabharata is not very clear on that. Bhishma is more clearer. Yeah. So we'll stop here. Maybe we can take more questions later. I think devotees also need a break. It's been a long time since we have come. Probably, so we'll discuss more in the next class. So if you have questions, you can write to me in email, and I would rather discuss those questions in front of the entire class because everybody can get benefited, if that's okay with you, instead of expecting individual response and then I have to tell. Is that okay? All right. We'll continue discussing these questions as the classes go by. So, parking?
Yes.
Yeah. So, we have Sunday school for the kids, and if you have a